Hello and welcome to Filmcast Without A Cause. I'm Jacob Rosdale.
And I'm Patrick Boberg, and we do not have a special co-host for the show, but if you want to be a co-guest, all you have to do is leave a comment on Filmcast Without A Cause. There you'll find links to our Twitter, our FWOAC phone. If you want to give us a call and leave us a voicemail, just give us some feedback and we'll get you on the show.
Yes, exactly, and we love to hear from our listeners. And if you are a new listener, you may not know, every week we start off our show with talking about movie news. And the big news this week, of course, is the Sundance Film Festival going on in Park City, Utah. As we record this, it's only the 5th day of the festival, so we haven't heard all the details. Pat, have you been following your Twitter feed as close as I have?
No, I have not been connected to the internet very much this weekend, but the one that we are going to talk about, I've heard about.
Yes, I'll just fill you in on what movies are getting the good buzz and the bad buzz. The one that's getting the most interesting buzz, anyway, is a film called Escape from Tomorrow, which was directed by a man named Randy Moore. And I guess it's a surrealist type film about a man who gets fired from his job at Disneyland, and then, I don't know if they go out right and say it because I haven't seen it, but then spends the rest of the movie kind of trying to escape this theme park, which is trying to kill him. And apparently it's very surreal. I know it's shot in black and white. But the interesting thing about this film is how it was made, being shot entirely at Disneyland without their permission. That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's like guerrilla to another level, truly guerrilla filmmaking, and that no one outside of the few people who are in it know what's going on. And have you seen a clip from this? Because there is one clip I've seen on YouTube.
I have not seen any clips. You'll have to send that to me.
There's like a big boom camera move and all sorts of interesting things that I don't know if it was entirely filmed there or filmed partially on their. I know both parks have like a resort connected to it, but it's very interesting just the way in which it looks like it's been filmed to think that he got away with it.
Yeah, apparently he shot it with a DSLR, which looks like a still photo camera, and I'm sure lots of people at Disneyland and Disney World have fancy cameras, so it probably didn't draw too much attention. Not knowing exactly how they interact with the background, though, you would think that some guard or someone would have, like, ears would have perked up, but it's Disneyland, everyone's being goofy, everybody's having fun. Probably didn't think anything of it, especially if it was all shot on a camera that looks just like any other camera.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a brilliant idea for making a movie, but at the same time, I don't know if this is ever going to get a theatrical release in any sort of way because Disney is going to sue the living daylights out of him.
Yeah, that's the one thing that people at Sundance really are experiencing something probably the rest of us won't if they get to see this film, because Disney will probably shut it down immediately. And I would be very surprised even if this would get like a free online release or anything, because there's so many. I mean, I don't know to profit off of it maybe is illegal, but if you're just shooting your home movie at Disneyland, is there any illegality in that? That's my question.
I don't know. There's a lot of intellectual property that will be in the background that is most definitely copywritten and trademarked up the wazoo, and probably just the park in general. There's probably even something on your ticket that says, it's similar to when you watch an NFL or any major league sports game where they say, the events in this game are copywritten. Any sort of reproduction or discussion of thereof is not allowed without the consent of Major League Baseball. The same thing is probably the same with Disney, that if you shoot this here, oh man, you are begging if you're gonna do something negative with it.
Yeah, it just sounds like a fun idea, actually. And I've been in places with my DSLR where I've thought, we could just film a movie here. We could just use these props, this production value. I never thought it would get into Sundance, though. So that's kind of the wonderful story about this, actually. So it's going to probably help his career, much like Todd Haynes, the guy who ended up directing I'm Not Here, that Bob Dylan movie, along with a lot of other movies. His big break was a film called Superstar, the Karen Carpenter story, which was filmed entirely with Barbies and without the life rights of Karen Carpenter. So it hasn't ever been released on home video, and it's been kind of a cult film, but now he's a big successful director, and that's how he got his name out, was with this weird short film.
Oh, that's amazing. Those are the things I really want to see. Like there was a couple years, maybe it was even a year ago, Topher Grace, with the blessing of Lucasfilms, went up to Skywalker Ranch and re-edited the entire the new trilogy to make it all one movie, but it's only about 85 minutes long, and he just cut out so much crap that everybody hates, and I guess it was extremely watchable. But knowing Lucasfilms, you're never going to be able to see that. So it was a one-time screening in L.A., and us poor schlubs in Iowa and North Carolina will only have the idea that that's at one point something awesome came of those three movies.
Well, maybe to segue into movies that we will actually get to see. I know you haven't been following the news as closely as I have, but I've been very happy to hear that a couple sequels actually are getting some good reception at Sundance. The one that's the biggest deal is Before Midnight, which is the new Richard Linklater film reuniting Ethan Hawke and Julia Delpy, the third in that trilogy. I've been trying not to read reviews, and I've already read too much, just reading little capsule reviews about how, because that film, the second film, kind of ends on a cliffhanger, much like the first one. We don't know if they're going to stay together or go their separate ways. And I've read too much, but apparently it's good. So that's a big relief, because they could have easily screwed that up and ruined a whole very classy, probably not classy, but, most respectful film series going.
Wasn't there a 10-year break between the first two movies or something?
Yeah, and I think it's been that long since this one and the second one too. So it's
really
kind of a real time. I'm trying to remember. It came out when I think I was in college, which was probably around 2001 or 2002 when it came out.
The second one, I thought that came out within the last 3 or 4 years.
Let's do a FWOAC fact check.
2004.
2004, so nearly 10. That's 9 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and Richard Linklater, I don't know the name of this, but he's also doing a thing where he cast a little child in this film, and he's following this child as he grows up for one movie, like that he's been filming for years. Like, and now I think the kid is a teenager or something. So he's always doing these really, besides doing like Bad News Bears remakes and whatever, he's doing some very experimental things with film, and kind of like the Up series, but fictional, tracing characters over time. So I'm really excited about Before Midnight. Another film I was excited about is the directorial debut of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Don John's Addiction. And I've read 2 different reviews about that, and they couldn't be further apart about whether or not it's a good or a bad movie.
Isn't it supposed to be about a guy who has serious internet porn addictions, and then a girl who has, I don't know if it's addictions, but her idea of love is completely built around romantic comedies?
Yeah, it's something like that. Scarlett Johansson playing the girl, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt the guy. So it kind of echoes a little bit the 500 Days of Summer, like, romance as we see in the movies versus the reality. And I don't know how dark the porn addiction thing is. It seems, having just recently seen Shame, I can't imagine it's that dark. But I don't know. I'm still curious about it, because I'm rooting for that guy. But I'm hoping it's more on the positive side.
Well, if he doesn't end up being a directorial success, he can always go back and be in every movie ever made for the next 5 years, it seems.
He's got an okay day job. And lastly, I want to mention the film I think we're both curious to hear about from Sundance, Upstream Color. It is airing the day we're recording this, and I haven't seen any reviews yet. But there is some kind of good and bad news regarding Upstream Color, Pat, that I'm not sure if you're familiar with.
How bad is bad? That's the question.
Well, it's bad in regards that your wish, I remember we did 3 cinematic wishes for
that it'll get a major release?
It does not seem like it's going to get a major release, because Shane Carruth, the writer, director, producer, cinematographer, sound editor, he basically did everything with his first film Primer, and then this one. He's also decided to go to market it and distribute it himself. So he's been cutting up the trailers that have been peeking out online, and he's already struck a deal to show it in New York and LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Boston, Dallas, Chicago, some other markets, but he's also already arranged the digital distribution, which will be pretty much same day in May for DVD, Blu-ray, and Netflix. So we will be able to see it. That's the good news.
But if he takes it on the road, this might be a chance to take a FWOAC road trip.
Oh, yes. Well, if it ends up anywhere between Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and Des Moines, Iowa, I will meet you halfway, and we'll see Shane Carruth. It's Shane Carruth, especially if he's doing a Q&A. Maybe he's going to do more film festivals. If he comes down to River Run, you're welcome to stay at my place.
Maybe we can do a surreptitious video about 2 guys trying to meet at a film screening in Louisville. Meet you in Louisville, and you'll just film everyone you meet on the way, and I'll film everyone I meet on the way, and not tell them it's for a movie.
And maybe you can make it to Sundance next year. Who knows? That's pretty unlikely. Let's jump to a film that's couldn't be further away from the Sundance vibe. Other than, the first one was set in mountains and kind of did have that hot tub vibe to it, Pat. But you brought the story to my attention, so you go ahead and
Well,
start it off.
basically, it seems like the people who made Hot Tub Time Machine, everybody's hilarious science concept for time travel, have decided their MGM, that is, they're going to possibly bring us a sequel that does not have John Cusack as the main character, and he may not be involved at all at the moment. It's going to have a chance of having Rob Corddry and Steve Pink write the script, who had a great deal to do with the story in the first place. And that's about all I really know at the moment. But the reason I brought it up is because have you seen the film, Jacob?
Yeah, so when it came out, but I haven't seen it since
either.
Yeah.
But the way that it ends, there doesn't seem to be a way you could make a sequel unless maybe somebody jumps in a time machine in the past and comes to the future. I don't know. But it got me thinking about, would you want to see this film first?
Well, if they went to the future, maybe. I mean, that's kind of if they're going to the Back to the Future route. You do one movie in the past, and then you go to the future to... I can't remember exactly how it ends, but I know they kind of wrote themselves in a corner. I don't know about Rob Corddry as the star, though. He was kind of the more grating part of that film, if I remember right.
Well, see, I had that feeling going into the movie that Rob Corddry was going to ruin it, but that was the first time I ever saw him in a film, and I enjoyed him, and now I give him much more of a chance as opposed to back then. But I would see it just because the first one actually had some seriously genuine laughs in it and kind of innovative with some of the things it did, like stealing a song from the future and changing a sports game in the past, which everybody knew, the Browns-Broncos game, and, of course, the hot tub. But it also got me thinking about the Departed sequel talk. Do you remember when that came out? And Mark Wahlberg tends to do this with all of his hits, where he immediately says, oh, we're going to do a sequel or a spinoff featuring my character. And
he's still talking about an Italian Job sequel like it's going to happen, and that came out over 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but does anybody in their right mind want to see the Mark Wahlberg character from The Departed follow his character after, I'm not going to ruin it, but after what happens in the end of that film? Do you want to see that movie?
No, not really.
So
no.
My question is, if there's other movies out there that maybe haven't painted themselves into a corner, but along those lines, or you never thought there'd be a sequel, is there one or two that you thought, man, I wouldn't mind seeing where this goes next or what this character's up to?
It's tough because I think with movies, especially movies that are kind of franchise-based, life seems to find a way. And no matter how they end it, a sequel comes regardless. That said, and again, this is something I can't spoil because the movie's still very fresh. I would love to see them do a sequel to Cabin in the Woods because I really enjoyed the world that they created in that. But that that's a film that sort of writes itself into a corner at the very end with the very last shot.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they'd pull it off and if it was as good as the original. But it seemed like the farther that movie got on, the less I was in on the joke, at least down to the bitter end. But I was thinking about this kind of hard and fast and thinking of, after Cloverfield came out, there was some talk about the sequel not being a traditional sequel, but a reshot of the movie from a different part of Manhattan.
Oh.
And that got me thinking about maybe if they did that for like 12 Monkeys, where somebody from another part of the globe is battling this plague and traveling back in time at the same time as Bruce Willis, but say they're Russian or something like that. Something completely different.
That's a cool idea. Speaking of another movie that I know will never get a sequel, I still want to see a sequel to Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes movie, because I always wanted to know what the hell they were going to do after that stupid twist ending. So
I completely agree. That is a great pick. I'm sure Tim Burton wants nothing to do with that, but
and I don't think Fox does either with their successful, rebooted Ape sequel.
Well, maybe in like 30 years from now, when we're millionaires, we can greenlight somebody to make the sequel to that, because Tim Burton will be dead, and someone will be in the same vein as us, as saying, "Man, that movie was trash." But where's it going next?
And speaking of life finding a way and Planet of the Apes, if you've ever seen Beneath the Planet of the Apes, that's literally a movie that it was designed so there could not be a sequel after Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and yet there were 3 films following it. So life finds a way. Switching gears totally again, Pat, I'm not a sports guy, but even this week have been bombarded with news about Lance Armstrong and what is his name, Monte DeTeo. But what's the guy with the fake girlfriend?
Oh, Monte Teo.
Monte Teo, yeah. But so if people were hoping to listen to our podcast to escape news about Lance Armstrong and Manny Te'o,
forget it. He's coming to the silver screen.
Well, Manny Te'o maybe not yet, but that wouldn't surprise me if that's going to inspire a safety not guaranteed type riff on that concept. But yes, Lance Armstrong, already talk of a movie based on this recent scandal with my man J.J. Abrams, and Paramount scheduled to
fast track it, right?
Yeah, fast track it, exactly. Pat, maybe you've been following this. I know you're an avid cyclist, so actually I don't. But
well,
you like to ride
I
your bike.
kind of, not an avid. I don't really have a mega bike or anything, but I did go see Lance Armstrong in 2004. So I did have a great deal of interest. On the other side, I don't have cable, so not only was I, had a little bit of a reprieve from being able to see the actual interview, but my phone blew up with Twitter comments of people talking about it. But the idea of making this movie and following him from like the highest of the highs to now the lowest of the lows, are you surprised that J.J. Abrams would pick this film?
That's why I'm wondering if this, while we're reporting this story now, if this will be proven to be a hoax by the time the show hits the interwebs, because it just seems, he's done non-genre films before, mainly romantic comedies and dramas on TV, like the movie I can think of as Morning Glory, but not a sports movie, so it's kind of a new direction for him. I don't think he's talking about directing it at all. It's just going to be a Bad Robot thing. But it made me read the headline, which I probably wouldn't have otherwise.
I don't know if people... This isn't Zero Dark 30 here. I don't know if this needs to hit right at this moment to gain the audience. If anything, I think people 5-10 years from now would be more interested in the story. In fact, I'd say 10. Because if they put this movie into production, it's going to be at least a year and a half before it's in audiences. Yeah,
give it some time. I agree with that. I was listening to them talk about the story on NPR, and I was thinking that there could be a good movie made about this, especially because no one would seem to believe people when they were saying that he was this head of this doping ring or whatever. So I wasn't seeing it as Lance's story, but whoever, like one of these cycling whistleblowers or whatever, trying to take down the biggest name in the sport. That's where I was thinking the movie could go. I don't know all the details, so maybe make a fictional guy doing that. But out of left field, who do you think would play a good Lance Armstrong if they are going to do this in the next 2 years? Do you have anyone in mind?
Oh man, that is a really hard question.
Blindside?
There would have to be somebody obviously athletic and blonde hair. Oh yeah. Man.
I was thinking Josh Lucas, who's not a big star. And maybe he's a little older at this point.
I would say that's a good pick, or maybe Matthew McConaughey, but he's actually like best friends with Lance Armstrong, so that's not happening.
Yeah. And I guess there was a film in development with Jake Gyllenhaal to play Lance Armstrong that Lance was producing.
Oh,
and that,
no.
that kind of died out when the scandal sort of hit. And I think Fassbender probably could play it. He's definitely in shape. I've seen him run a lot recently, so that's the second mention of shame this podcast already. So I don't know. My vote's for either Josh Lucas or Fassbender. Well, that's enough talk about running and Fassbenders for the moment. Let's segue into our feature review of the week, the Oscar-nominated Silver Linings Playbook.
So, Pat, what's this I hear about you just getting out?
From the loony bin! I thought you said you had it together. You were solid.
I am solid. I was solid at the game.
Sprung against doctor's orders from a mental health institution, Patrick tries anything to reconcile with his wife. After meeting Tiffany, who has her own problems, the two strike a mutually beneficial deal to better their situation.
Don't let Tiffany get you in trouble.
She's my friend. Why would you say that?
There's this dance thing. I can only do it if I have a partner.
Oh, I'm not going to dance with you.
So is this the girl you wrote about?
You wrote about me?
She's fine.
She is my friend with an F.
A capital F. She's fine.
For friend.
Let me tell you, you gotta pay attention to signs. When life reaches out with a moment like this, it's a sin if you don't reach back. I'm telling you, it's a sin if you don't reach back.
Following 2010's The Fighter, writer-director David O. Russell returns with Silver Linings Playbook, a film that is a little bit of a passion project, seeing as Russell's own son is bipolar. Now, back in September, when Jacob and I were eagerly awaiting The Master to be released, it was actually Silver Linings Playbook that bested Paul Thomas Anderson's film for the top prize at the Toronto International Film Festival, a festival that has historically been a great barometer for future award success. So last week we discussed the Oscar nominations, and as many know, Silver Linings did quite well for itself. It's the first film in 8 years to be nominated in all 4 major acting categories, the last one being Million Dollar Baby. And it's up for Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Director, and of course, Best Picture. That is a ton of praise, even if it doesn't take home a statue. So, Jacob, do you agree with the Academy? Is this film worth all the adoration? Or even better yet, do you agree with Toronto? Is this film better than The Master?
Oh, it's not better than The Master. Not that that's kind of David and Goliath thing, because I think The Master is better than most films that came out last year.
Well, not to stifle your momentum, but would you say an audience right after seeing it might think that film is better than The Master?
Yeah, it's a crowd pleaser. That's
exactly right.
It's very much more a crowd pleaser than The Master, which I think takes quite a bit of digestion to fully appreciate, and maybe multiple viewings. I know I certainly like The Master more on my second viewing. This film, I as far as the awards go, I'll address that too. I think it is a good film, but I think I can think of probably a dozen films that deserve award praise over this one. But that said, I do think it's very well directed and well acted, and I think it is good at what it is, which I don't think is a serious movie. I think it's more just a very good romantic comedy than a awards. Not that every awards film needs to be about serious issues or whatever, but I would still not rank this. I wouldn't call it a great film. How about you, Pat?
Calling it's a great film is really hard. Maybe on the press specific being a great film, just in the way that they address mental health issues and the way that people act around them. I've known several people in my life who have had issues where people will say, why can't they snap out of it? Like, it seems like people expect Bradley Cooper in this film. People seem to think that, why can't he just get over his issues and not wake his parents up at 3 a.m? So there were parts in it that I thought were pretty good, but there were some weird beats in this movie, like the whole parlay thing when they make a bet based on their dancing, and just the way that the first half of the film, it seemed almost everybody was a caricature of, hey, here's the best friend of the guy who's got bipolar disorder, or the mother who's too doting for her own good, or the father. In the book, I hear the father is completely connected from his son, but in the movie, he has his own issue, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. So I think that there are the makings of a good movie there, great movie there, but I don't know if they exactly pulled it off. I think maybe some of the acting was what making this movie better than what it should be considered.
For all the elements you listed, the handling of mental illness, the fact that some of these characters are a little wacky, not just the mental illness one, but just like the supporting cast, like the main character Bradley Cooper's shrink, the weird plot beats it takes. For all those reasons, this could have been a horrible film. If it had been slightly more broad, it would have been a disaster. But that's why I think it's a good film, despite its sort. Well, I haven't read the book, but despite the elements that make it, that's why I think it took a good director like David O. Russell to rein it in and kind of ground it in this kind of handheld documentary feel that he did with The Fighter as well. And if the cast was if they goofed this up, they could have easily cast Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston and did this movie, and it would have been god awful. Though that said, Adam Sandler kind of played this character in Punch Drunk Love a little bit. But that's why I think it's a good movie, but it's far from perfect, because it could have so easily been a disaster. So that's why I give it props for being at least a good movie when it could have been so bad.
Yeah, I think they handle all those things pretty well, but some of the, like you said in the story, like his shrink, who seems to be just a complete cartoon, and his best friend who just seems obnoxious and maybe a little overwrought, and that Pat saves his marriage, so to speak. And they throw in, it's apparently, they don't say it, but it seems like it's right in 2008, 2009, when the market's tanking and his buddy is a realtor and they live above their means. And just little things that maybe some people might feel make the story, but for me, it seems like we'll toss this in and then never bring it up again. Or we'll have his brother be a jerk and then never bring his brother into the situation at any point coming further in the film. It's like a underwritten episode at some points of... I don't know. Everybody loves Raymond at certain beats.
Yeah, I mean, all that kind of color that they throw in feels like a typical romantic comedy. And if it was not as grounded as it was in the style, then it would have been bad. It would have been hard to watch, I think. We're making kind of the same point. My main problem with the film and its premise is that while I think it's a romantic comedy, I'm not sure if the movie really gives anyone enough to believe that the main couple we're supposed to be rooting for, really deserve each other or want each other. Jennifer Lawrence's character kind of instantly wants to befriend Bradley Cooper, and later on we find out she has this dance thing, but it's not made clear if that's the main reason she's drawn to him and hounds him down. As we see in the trailer, she just pops out behind dumpsters and things to spook him and join him.
Well, there was a little toss in there that Pat's mother, Bradley Cooper, his mother kind of gave the girl his running route and what time he's running so that she could meet him. But I think that's probably has something to do with, she's been sleeping around since her husband died, and everybody who seems to run into her on the street knows that. Especially maybe the worst part of the film, that stupid parole-style cop who's supposed to be watching Pat. I hated that character, but he's the first guy that didn't completely take advantage of that. He seemed to have some sort of, moral pinning to his, wife who doesn't want anything to do with him. So it was an interesting mix of, say, a romantic comedy meets Lost in Translation at certain points, and it gets very Lost in Translation at, say, like almost the immediate end.
Yeah, when there was a shot that we both kind of texted each other over, and I'm a fan of the shot, even though it made you laugh. I guess we won't spoil it because it is kind of a spoiler. And when I talked about that, my main complaint to my wife, who also saw the movie with me, talked about how I didn't know if I was supposed to buy them as a couple. She corrected me and just explained that they're both really gorgeous actors, so of course they're going to be attracted to another. I'm like, okay, I guess in the world of this movie, they're still very good-looking people. Sometimes, like if they were in a film filled with gorgeous people, maybe my point would have a point, like I would be more pointed. I don't know.
So, well, without spoiling it, let's get back to the director part. The camera moves at the end where we were talking about. Did you feel that this is, David O. Russell's, top work or best works, which I would say would be Three Kings? Do you think that this film has his A+ directing in it?
Here's the weird thing about David O. Russell. With the past couple films, he's completely changed into a different director, I think. This has rarely happened with, I think, a director where... because he used to be a whole lot more mannered. I mean, he still did handheld stuff, but it was like Three Kings, which is probably my favorite film as well, was a little more on the quirkier side than this.
Yeah, it was like an American style Danny Boyle film or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I Heart Huckabees is almost Wes Anderson-y in the amount of style and mannerisms that are in that. With this in The Fighter, he really, it's more about establishing these communities, and
he definitely, like you said, goes into the documentary style filming with all the handheld things and the random really fast push-ins. Like someone's like, "Oh, I got to get this moment," and runs in with the camera.
But in that last shot that we're not, well, it's not the last shot, but that shot that we're kind of talking about, that kind of goes back to the O. Russell of the 90s and the 2000s, I think, where there's a little bit more of a little magic in the cinematography there. So I that's why I kind of liked that moment, and that maybe I was reading a little too much a tourism into it. But
the first part of the film that I mentioned, it felt kind of like poorly staged play and character-based or caricatures. I felt that the handhelds and all the really extreme close-ups didn't do the film any service, and I didn't enjoy it. In fact, at certain points, I was wondering if the movie was out of focus. With just the way it was. That might have been the theater I was in. I was in a very small theater, and I was 30 feet from the screen, and it still felt disorienting at moments.
Yeah, but there's a scene where Bradley Cooper's character has kind of a freak out and a fight with his parents, and that's when that documentary style really works. Mm-hmm. And they're using a Led Zeppelin song. A lot of the music cues in this film, I think, are too on the nose. I had that same problem with The Fighter. Yeah,
I remember that was one of our first discussion points after the film is, what was this movie with that music?
Yeah, so I still think he went a little overboard with the pop music, but that moment with the Led Zeppelin tune, I think really worked well, and with the handheld and the tight shots with that scene. Mentioning De Niro, a lot of people are expressing surprise that De Niro seems to actually have tried for once or whatever for Silver Linings Playbook. I thought he was pretty good. I don't know about Oscar ready.
Yeah, but I think he was above average at best, which is good because I agree there has been a long string of Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers style acting that you expect more.
The one thing I was going to add about last week, we talked about the Academy Awards and how it earned all four or noms in all four acting categories. The one I don't know if it's quite deserved. Maybe it's such a weak category, but Jackie Weaver has such a small role in this, and she's constantly slipping into her Australian accent even. That that's the one that kind of made me cringe when the Oscar noms came out.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that if people might have campaigned a little harder for Chris Tucker over Robert De Niro, because I think everybody's opinion of Chris Tucker is he's just like a big joke in films, and he's not really an actor or should be considered an actor. But I think after seeing this movie, we have a good chance of seeing him quite a bit more in the future.
Yeah, if he's willing to take the work. I think it was his own kind of self-exile, I believe, for a while. But this had just the right amount of Chris Tucker, and he is quite charming in the film. I do like it.
Well, what do you think Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence had a shot or deserved to win those statues? Because I haven't seen Hunger Games, and I've only seen Winter's Bone, but I think Jennifer Lawrence is excellent, and this might be Bradley Cooper's best acting to date, not including the A-Team.
Not including the A-Team or his work on Alias. No, I think they both deserve the nominations. They don't stand a snowball's chance in winning either one. But it's good for Lawrence. I mean, she really is establishing herself as a serious actress. Even with the Hunger Game franchise going on, she's making sure she has a career after those books run out or whatever. So, yeah, it was really good to see her at the top of her game in this too.
It's also more of an overt performance than I've seen. Have you seen the Hunger Games? Is she very withdrawn in that film? Because here she's yelling and screaming, and it's not what I would call DiCaprio screaming, where it's like, oh, there he goes screaming again. It seems like she's very much playing the part correctly, in my opinion.
I know this film has gotten some heat because it sort of seems to, maybe some people think it's trivializing mental disabilities or whatever, or mental disorders. And I really do think these characters do treat them as serious people, and it's not just a hook to hang this romantic comedy concept on, this two people who shouldn't be together or maybe should, who work together to reach a goal. I think it's handled well, and from my wife, who says she has dealt with those kind of people in the past, she says it was done very tactfully as well.
I agree. It's the same type of discussion of the person who talked about the torture in Zero Dark 30 before seeing the film.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I don't think that's a fair assessment, especially just like your wife said, that knowing people like this and knowing how, just taking yourself out of the room and watching how others deal with them, it's very similar to the way they portrayed in this movie.
Well, Silver Linings Playbook, which you can still see in theaters, is rated R for language and some sexual content and nudity. After the break, we will be kicking off our FWOAC franchise flashback of 2013 with Die Hard. Keep listening. Welcome back. New on DVD this week, the week of January 22nd. A couple notable films, mostly in the documentary section. End of Watch is coming out. I'm looking forward to that. The Paperboy, the director of Precious, follow-up. Apparently that is quite an odd film. And have you heard the rumors about, or things about Paperboy? And
yes, there is some very pornographic things that happen in that movie.
Yeah, apparently it's not very good, but features some a strong performance from Nicole Kidman.
Not a movie to rent with your parents.
Yeah.
It probably goes somewhere in the lines of like The Astronaut's Wife and Summer of Sam. Or Closer. Those are the movies you don't watch with your parents.
No, not at all. Especially Closer. Oh my!
I made that accident. We'll talk about it another time.
Okay. And Universal Soldier: Day of Reckoning, a film I'm kind of curious of having, even though I haven't seen any of the other Universal Soldiers. I mentioned the documentaries though. Some big ones coming out: The Imposter, Pina, the dancing documentary by Wim Wenders, and the Oscar-nominated Searching for Sugar Man. Pat, you actually saw an Oscar-nominated documentary this week, right?
Yes, instead of watching the Golden Globes, my wife and I tricked her into it because I don't think she would have seen it otherwise. I turned on Netflix, The Invisible War. And this is the documentary about rape in the military, or just female sexual assault in the military, and how terrible it is. And it's actually caused Leon Panetta, the Secretary of Defense, to make some changes. And it was very compelling and horrific to watch. And at some points, though, I hate whenever they talk to like senators and House of Representatives people in movies, because it always seems like they're selling something. They're the worst salesmen in the world. Beyond that, I also saw... Oh, you saw a documentary here, I see. That's nominated.
Yeah, I'll get to that later.
Okay, well, then The other things I saw, Hope Springs, the Let's Fall Back in Love Again movie between Tommy Lee Jones and Meryl Streep. And I also saw Your Sister Sister featuring Rosemary DeWitt and Mark Duplass. And
Is that a Duplass Brothers joint? Did they direct that as well?
No.
No, that's Lynn Shelton.
Yes, that, exactly. And it does have a lot of like what appears to be improv in it. It's the main reason I don't like Mark Duplass. And for the first half of the movie, I was kind of hating it. But anyways, I also saw Equilibrium, which I don't really care to talk about, except for it has some awesome action at the very end. And I also ate shawarma this weekend.
Oh, I love shawarma.
I really want to talk about. Oh, you've had it? Okay, good.
Oh,
good,
yeah.
Good. Because,
we have a Mediterranean place here in town. I love it.
Marita and I were walking down the East Village, and we were looking at this Lebanese restaurant and seeing if we were going to go in. And I saw on the menu shawarma. And of course, most people who listen to our podcast have probably seen The Avengers. And I said, I got to do it. I got to eat shawarma. So I went in, and it was amazing. But I was waiting for my shawarma. I'm talking with the waitress because it was a small place. And I said, this is a stupid question, but have you seen The Avengers? She says, no, but every other nerd that comes in here asks me if I have.
Every other nerd.
Yeah. And she said that there was a comic book convention in Des Moines, like a true comic book convention, and a bunch of comic book guys came over and ate shawarma. And she said she loves that movie just because it's getting a lot more people to eat shawarma who may not. And if I may endorse it, sounds like Jacob endorses it. That's the one thing I want you to take home for my recommendations. It's eat some shawarma.
More important than The Invisible War. I, too, saw an Oscar-nominated documentary this week on Netflix. There's actually 3 of them now on Netflix. The Invisible War, 5 Broken Cameras, and the one I saw, How to Survive a Plague, which is a documentary about the early days of AIDS advocacy among the gay community. And it's mainly comprised of archival material, home video news footage shot during the time in the late 80s, early 90s. And it's a very powerful film. I can see how it got nominated. And I also saw the same day, to kind of like clear that from my mind, because it is, a serious subject, I finally saw the Academy Award nominated Paranorman, which is quite charming. I really like Paranorman, rooting for that.
So you want that one to win?
I think so. I might have liked it more than Brave.
You might have liked it more than Wreck-It Ralph?
Probably. It's a close one. I think they're about, like, I didn't love either one. I just really liked both of them, Wreck-It Ralph and Paranorman. I give Paranorman the edge because the stop motion. I know stop motion animated films have won in the past. I believe that dog and that guy, Wallace and Gromit won it a few years ago. But when you look at that, there's so much more work goes into making one of those films than probably, I know a lot of work goes into a 3D animated film as well, but ridiculous. Those people must be insane who do that work. I can't imagine going to bed at night.
You have to be perfectionists to pull it off.
Oh, exactly. And there's some funny gags in Paranorman. And I don't want to spoil anything, but one of the last jokes in it is surprisingly brave for a children's cartoon. It just caught me off guard. I was doubled over laughing over one little joke involving Casey Affleck's character. Now, people who've seen it will know what I'm talking about. And I also saw Disney's Dinosaur because I am TAing, and I had to watch that for class, and so I've seen it 2 or 3 times now, and it's not a very good movie. But
is that the complete CGI film?
It is weird because all the backgrounds are real. They went on locations and filmed the ground and the trees and the ocean, and then put the CGI dinosaurs on top. So maybe in 2000 or 2001 it looked super realistic, but now you can tell how much the dinosaurs stand out from the realistic background, and they look totally weightless. But I just wanted to mention that in case for some reason one of my students find this podcast and want to see if I'm really watching the movies we're talking about. The code word is lemur. Mention that and get a extra percentage on your next quiz.
Seriously?
No, not really.
Oh.
But I want to see if anyone will go up to me and say lemur. I'll do what I can. I'll grade you a little more leniently to support you listening to this podcast. But, and I've been without a wife, a car, and my work laptop all weekend. So I've actually been watching a ton of movies, including Shame. But I'll say I don't want to delay I don't want to delay the pleasure of talking about Die Hard any longer. So let's get into our first FWOAC franchise flashback of the year, Die Hard.
It's Christmas Eve in L.A.
California.
Is Daddy coming home soon?
Well, we'll see what Santa and Mommy can do, okay?
A New York cop, John McClane, has come to see his wife.
I missed you.
Instead, he's going to have to save her.
For those of you who don't know what Die Hard is about, it's about a group of terrorists who take over an LA skyscraper during a corporate Christmas party, and it's up to a New York City police officer to save the day.
He's an easy guy to like.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
And a hard man to kill. Bruce Willis, Die Hard.
Got invited to the Christmas party by mistake. Who knew?
Inspired by an upcoming fourth sequel for our second FWOAC franchise flashback ever, we'll be discussing the films in the Die Hard series. In the coming weeks, we'll be discussing films that get bigger and twistier than director John McTiernan's 1988 blockbuster, but the beginnings of this cinematic institution begin with a pretty straightforward premise. An everyman, Bruce Willis's John McClane, is the only one in hostage-filled Nakatomi Plaza who's qualified to take down the bad guys and save the day. This man-in-close-quarters premise was so influential that Die Hard soon became shorthand for high-concept action thrillers. Think Die Hard on a train, Die Hard on a bus, Die Hard in a hockey stadium, etc. We'll talk more about how if the action film that started a subgenre still holds up today in a couple of minutes, but we'll start this FWOAC franchise flashback just as we started our last one, which was the Alien series, by me asking you about your personal history with the Die Hard films.
Well, it's interesting because I know definitely my personal history with Alien, but Die Hard, I'm not exactly certain about it. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw it all the way through was on a sleepover in 7th grade, like from front to end, and I loved it. For more than a year, I remember feeling that it and the third movie that I think I saw right after were two of the best films ever made. I still think it's a great ride. There's parts to nitpick or whatever, but it is still just as good as I remember it. What do you think?
Well, I also came to Die Hard relatively late. Like Alien, I remember seeing one of the sequels first on Fox on television. That would be Die Hard with a Vengeance. It was probably not till like 2000 or so since I saw Die Hard, the original, for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, and since then I've seen it quite a few times. I can't quote it obsessively like some people we know, but I am pretty familiar with it. I've made up for lost time, let's say. And the last time I saw the original Die Hard was probably right before Live Free or Die Hard, which was 2007, which I didn't realize that came out 5 years ago. Time keeps on slipping, man.
No, 6 years ago. It's 2013.
Oh, no. Okay, good. Okay. Wow.
Well, thinking about that, so you've seen it recently, more recently than I. Do you think it's better or worse than you remember in 2006?
Die Hard is a film I think that gets better each time I see it.
Yeah.
I really do think so. And I think part of that is friends have come into my life who grew up with that movie, and they quote it a lot, one friend in particular. And so now when I rewatch it, there are a lot more memorable lines just because I've heard my friends quote it so much. That's kind of a personal thing going in. But I always do appreciate how clever some of the things in Die Hard are, and we'll get into those later. But just the geography, or for example, like how he keeps coming across that nude magazine, so we know where he's oriented in the building, and where, and it calls back to that. So I do appreciate it with each viewing.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's probably not as good as when I thought it, when 7th grade, when I thought it was the best movie ever, but it still definitely holds up greatly. And I think I appreciate some of the decisions that John McClane would make in certain points more than I did like on previous viewings when I used to be just a complete jerk about nitpicking every film. But it's still completely one of those keystone American films that maybe there's parts that are wrong with it, but it's almost unpatriotic to dislike it.
What would you say is the best part about Die Hard?
Well, there's just a sequence from when he's on the roof and Carl and some other guys with machine guns come after him, and he has to run through the elevator and then into the air duct where he says, the famous "come out to the coast, we'll have a couple laughs" line. And just that sequence there, that's about 10 minutes long, and it's that whole run there is just makes complete sense. There's nothing you can say that's wrong with it, and except for maybe where he jumps in the door and Carl's not shooting. But
yeah, maybe.
But I think that whole run there that 10-minute sequence is perfect, absolutely perfect.
What I would say is the best part, is what I really responded to this time viewing it, is the idea that they had to have him shoeless for the bulk of the film, because that makes him so much more vulnerable than typical action hero, especially at the time when we're talking Schwarzenegger, Stallone, the heyday of that. So the McClane character in general is, a little more human than superhuman. He's always a wisecracking cowboy, but he is in over his head. He's often nervous and scared. But the idea that he's shoeless, not only does it create that cool scene where he walks on the glass that Chris Farley is always impressed about, but on the Chris Farley show, but it's just kind of a cool idea. I wonder when they had that. It's like, oh yeah, and he should not have any shoes on the whole time, because it's just this little hidden element of danger that we forget about until it becomes an issue.
Yeah, and it's set up. It's like the very first thing that's set up in the movie that hey, take your shoes off. Make little fists with your toes. What about the weakest part?
I don't have a great answer for this. I've never liked the obnoxious hacker guy in the film. Clarence Gilliard Jr. plays him. He's
Theo?
Yeah, Theo. He makes all sorts of bad jokes, and he laughs at himself. I've never really liked him. And he doesn't even get the limo driver takes him out, so he doesn't even get that great of a comeuppance. But after further reviewing, he's become such my least favorite part that there's a charm to it, and I enjoy his parts because then I can make fun of him. So maybe you have a better weakest part to Die Hard than I do.
I don't really care for when we talked about the Pixar rules for storytelling, maybe in episode 4 or 5 of Filmcast, but there's a coincidence where he's up in the air vent, and of course Carl's going along pushing his machine gun. Pushing his machine gun against the air duct, and he gets all the way down to the one where John McClane's in it, and then all of a sudden the other, German or whatever, who's out with the machine gun starts yelling, "Carl, let's go!" Blah blah blah, and he kind of looks up like, "Should I push that last one?" Of course, coincidence would have it that he doesn't push the very one that he's in. I think he would have run and pushed them all real quick. Also, I don't really like the Hans and McClane face-to-face scene. It makes sense that you want them to be in more than one scene together. But he was just on the radio speaking back and forth with him. I think he would know the tone of his voice, just because Alan Rickman's voice is so distinct, and he's probably very keyed in on Hans, the way Hans sounds.
You didn't find his American accent convincing?
No, just from the way that he still talks with the same sort of lilt or drone to his voice. So it's not completely convincing to me that scene makes sense.
He did give him a gun without bullets in it.
Yeah, but that's the last thing he does. And then, of course, he doesn't shoot him when he runs out of the room. It's like, maybe I'll shoot this guy, the guy in charge.
We should mention there are spoilers in the FWOAC franchise flashbacks. But
a movie that's 25 years old at this point, I think we can spoil all we want.
That's true. Speaking of 25 years and many viewings later, is there anything that resonated with you this viewing that you hadn't noticed before by any chance?
The Twinkie joke for certain. There's a couple scenes with Twinkies, and my first thought was, oh, those are gone. That's not gonna, you can't get those anywhere. But maybe the cough stuff on the ground. It's pretty comical, but I don't know if they really need that because John McClane he's just kind of wisecracking his way through the whole situation to ease his tension and deal with the severity of situation he's presented. I just think that bureaucratic nonsense and the FBI Johnsons, or as I like to think of it, maybe they called them the Johnsons because they're dicks from the FBI.
I'm sure that was the joke.
Yeah. And I just think the superiors in that bureaucratic business is, just maybe a little too silly.
I think we have a kind of a similar answer because I actually did pick up on the goofy humor in this film that I hadn't caught before. Yeah. Like how Theo and the big blonde guy have a bet about whether or not the Chinese CEO will give a code.
I never mentioned that. I never remembered that either.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, he's not going to do it. Just wait. And then at the very end of the scene, they hand $1. Like, I'd never caught that before. And then there's a scene where a SWAT team member is coming in when they're approaching Nakatomi, and he cuts himself on a rose thorn and goes, ouch! Like, and then in the very next scene, it's one of the goons is hiding out behind a snack bar, and then he looks down at the candy bars and says, "Oh, what the heck?" and then eats a candy bar. There's just a bunch of like these really goofy visual gags with these characters that I never picked up before. That comic
bar scene is that candy bar scene is one of my favorites.
I mean, I would too if I was, if I had a machine gun in an abandoned tower and there were candy bars there, I would help myself to a candy bar. I can't.
It's kind of like when you're walking through a multiplex and you see the candy stop or the popcorn thing that's never been used in the back reaches of the theater. Yeah. And you're like, is anyone going to miss this 10-year-old Milk Dud box that's been sitting here? Of course, we ask the question, did this film need a sequel or does this film add to the story? I mean, do you think that, obviously they made the sequels, do you think that they kind of keep the story going from where this is?
What I've noticed again this time, and I'm sure I noticed it before, but they established that McClane has 2 kids, and they've worked their way into the sequels. But it really is a pretty good standalone film. But once they cross the Rubicon of making sequels, I see no reason for them to stop, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think we could talk about what they fit into to this movie or how they jigsaw together. But I think that might be best saved. I did notice an interesting relationship between this movie and the third and Taken 2, but we'll get to that maybe down the line.
Okay. Where we usually rank these as the film goes, but on the first film, do you still think this film ranks number 1 in the franchise? Is it still the best of the 4 from your memory?
It's the worst, without question. No, come on, this is the best action movie probably of a generation in some respects because of how realistic it can be at certain points. So I think it's number 1.
Yeah, I agree. I think that gets more fun when we get into the sequels and trying to rank where those fit in. But usually the first film is the best, and Die Hard is no exception to that. Die Hard is rated R for strong graphic, bloody violence, pervasive language, some sexuality, nudity, and drug use. When we come back, we are going to wrap up the show. Keep listening.
Welcome back, FWOAC fans. Before we close out the show, let us give you a way to get in contact with us. If you want to tweet the Filmcast, it's pretty easy. It's Filmcast WOAC. Filmcast WOAC. That's also the same handle for our Gmail account, filmcastwoac@gmail.com. And if you're feeling really brave and want to keep it PG rated, you can call us on the FWOAC phone, 515-412-0737. Again, that's 515-412-0737. And if you leave us a comment on our website, filmcastwithoutacause.com, it will be in the show. That's all the ways to get in contact with us. Now, Jacob, what are we reviewing next week?
Well, it is the middle of January, or kind of the end of January, so it's a lot of weird stuff coming out. January 25th, Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters comes out, as well as Movie 43, which is a kind of a sketch comedy movie starring a lot of famous people. Been in development for years, I guess. And Jason Statham in Parker. A little bit of trivia for you there, Pat. Parker has previously been adapted. It's based on a book by Donald Westlake called Point Blank, already adapted once as Point Blank starring Lee Marvin, and the film Payback starring Mel Gibson. I believe this is not going the exact Payback route, though. But also on limited release and on demand, John Dies at the End from the director of Phantasm. What we are reviewing next week, though, I finally was able to convince Pat that we should review the new Arnold film, The Last Stand. I'm so excited.
Well, if we're giving all this love to Bruce Willis, reviewing all of his key movies in his career, well, not all, but the probably ones that set him up for life, we should give some credence to the man who made action what it is today.
Great. I am so excited to see Arnold back on the big screen. But that does it for us this week on Filmcast Without a Cause. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Patrick. That's a wrap.
I'm finished.